Um, I don't have, I was told to eat the microphone. I can put it back a little bit. It's probably that coach in me coming out. Welcome everybody here. A little closer. All this baby. So, thanks for coming. We thought, as the commissioners, that we should have a session or two. I'm not saying this is the last one. It is the first one though, but just to give people a chance to talk, to hear some things, to learn about solar energy in general. We really weren't going to focus a lot on those specific projects, but we know that the questions are probably going to go there, so we're okay with that. We do have some guidelines for people if they're going to speak. We only have 5 or 6 people that have signed up, but if you want to ask questions, obviously you can ask questions. We thought a little bit should be said before we start about the process in the county. We've gotten, Bobby Little, another commissioner, and I have gotten a lot of emails about voting no. The process in the county, the only vote the commissioners had was adopting the Unified Development Ordinance that was passed a couple of years ago. So there's a process in the Unified Development Ordinance. People come with a project. If it's acceptable in the zone that it's slated for, okay, it can move forward with some permitting. If it's not, if it's a special exception, it goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And so that's the way the process is. That's set up. It's nothing new. It's not like we're changing anything, but we as the commissioners really don't have a vote yes or no on any project whatsoever. So I appreciate your concern, but we have to be impartial in this whole process, but once again, the process has been set up. So, just real quick, trying to lay down some guidelines, not only for people speaking who have signed up, but those for asking questions. We're gonna try to limit comments to 4 minutes, okay? We don't want people to continue. 4 minutes is enough time to get your concern, your issue, your question. Individuals are going to be limited. If you want to speak multiple times, if somebody on this list wants to come up again, we want to get through the list once and then we'll let you come back up. But we're going to do that. We're going to ask you to state your name and the community where you reside. We really would like most, we're going to give preference obviously to Jefferson County citizens. If there's somebody from outside the county that wants to speak, we'll wait till the end and make sure everybody from Jefferson County's had an opportunity. We want to be respectful. We don't want any personal attacks. We're going to try to refrain from demonstrations after people talk, okay? You may not think it's a problem, but you voicing approval or disapproval of someone may cause someone else who wants to speak, they may not want to after that. And if you have something you want to say to us, but you don't want to say it in public, you can submit it in writing. Okay? So those are the guidelines that we'd like to follow tonight. And so I know there was some thoughts early on, would the Orion be here or would they not? There was some confusion early on, but they obviously are here, so sorry for the confusion, but I think they have a presentation on solar energy in general, and that's going to be our next topic. So we're going to turn it over to them, let them go through that, ask questions as you have them. We'll have someone with a mic that will come out and let you speak and be able to voice your question, and then we'll, after the presentation is over, we'll have the people that have signed up, we'll have them, give them an opportunity to speak. If you decide afterwards you would like to speak, you can. This list is not set in stone, obviously, so if you want to speak after you've heard everything, just let us know and we can get you on the list. Okay? So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda Hoffman, who works for Orion Energy.
Could everybody hear me? All right. My name's Amanda Hoffman. One second. And I work for Orion Renewables. I'm a project developer with the company. And I am going to be presenting for you all, but I'm also going to be handing it off to a number of other presenters that we have tonight. So we have a number of experts on the Zoom link that you'll see the video over here. So we have a number of experts that are going to be presenting on certain aspects of a solar project. And then we have a number of my colleagues here as well. So yeah, like I said, Amanda Hoffman, project developer with Orion. I also have a colleague on the line, Michael Kressner. We have Pete Berthelsen, Nick Kirkland, and Tommy Cleveland. And then I have two colleagues here, Justin Wolf and Will Humphrey. So you'll hear from a number of these folks throughout the night. They'll introduce themselves and give you a little background on who they are and their titles. I'm not going to do that for them, but they'll introduce themselves when they speak. So I'm just going to jump right in here. So how is the project built? We're going to do real general basic information about solar, just so that everybody has a basic understanding of how projects move through the process, because it's a hot topic obviously here in Jefferson County, and we want to make sure that everybody has the tools and information to understand how a project moves through the process. So first, a site is identified. It's chosen based on location, topography, access to the electrical grid, and willing landlords, as well as other factors. Okay. Then we move through the process to site control. So that developer works with landowners to come to an agreement with land leases. So after we identify site, then we move forward with those willing landowners to move forward with a land lease to develop the solar project. Sorry. Then there's an interconnection process, so that project has to connect to the electrical grid. That process can look different in different locations, so I'm not going to go into super great detail about that, but there is a process where either the project connects to the existing transmission lines or they connect to an existing power plant. Those are typically the main ways that a project puts power onto the grid. Then we have the preliminary design and permitting process. So that's where the project goes to the local, state, and federal government agencies. We engage with those agencies to move forward with all of the standards that a project needs to meet in order to move forward. And those local jurisdictions also have a process that they typically have to go through to review that application and determine whether it meets all the standards. Then we go, if a project gets approved with all of those permitting aspects, then it goes into field surveys. An engineering firm will design the layout of the panels to fit the property, and a building permit is submitted. And then construction starts. After that building permit is approved, then construction starts. That construction can last anywhere between a year, 18 months, potentially 24 months, depends a lot on the weather and how much of a delay there is with weather. And then last but not least, after the project gets built, then it actually gets switched on and it starts producing energy. Okay, so now we're going to move forward with unique solar project attributes, where Michael's going to present on that. So Michael is going to be on the screen over here, but he's going to be speaking on a couple of slides that you'll see in front of you.
Yeah, hi everybody. Hopefully everyone can see me. And just a note, Amanda, we can't see the presentation slides in the Zoom meeting, so I'll just have faith we're working on the same slide. But good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Kressner. I'm the Vice President of Development for Orion Renewables, and sorry I couldn't join you all in person. But before handing it off to my colleagues, I wanted to speak a little bit about the context of the type of projects that we're talking about and some unique aspects to utility scale solar projects in particular. So, there are several categorizations, classifications of solar projects. There's rooftops, which are pretty self-explanatory. There are smaller community-based solar projects, which might look like a utility scale project, but are a little bit of a different animal. But tonight we're focusing solely on utility scale development, which is what Orion works on and focuses on. And just wanted to give a little bit of context in terms of things that are particular to utility scale solar projects. So, to state the obvious, solar power is clean. And what we mean by that is, unlike other solar generation resources, there are no air emissions, there aren't odors, we don't use water as part of cooling or generally as part of regular operations of the project. There aren't any other types of emissions whatsoever. The power components are essentially the solar panel, inverters, underground cable, and main power transformers in O&M buildings. And that's pretty much at a high level what's involved on a utility scale solar project. Something else somewhat unique to solar relative to other generation resources is the sound profile of solar projects. So there are a very limited number of components within a utility scale solar project that produce any type of sound or noise. The main one that people tend to focus on are the inverters, which are the boxes that convert the voltage from the solar panels to the main system voltage that goes over to the main power transformer, and that electricity goes to the grid. That is usually the main source of any sound. Slightly less than that are for tracker sites, which are what we mainly focus on, where the solar panels tilt to track with the rotation of the sun. That's a very, very small amount in terms of sound emissions. But really, it's the main power transformer and the inverters that are throughout the field. But for the most part, it's a quiet facility. Inverters on our projects are sited within the project itself, so quite a distance away from the fence line. And that is very deliberate, because that is to just physically reduce the likelihood of sound carrying beyond the facility's fence line. And for most projects, existing ones, if the inverters are located within the facility itself versus on the perimeter, what you hear more often than not is ambient noises. So wind or road traffic tend to be louder at the edge of solar projects than any other equipment within the solar project itself. And during permitting, we always supply a noise and sound study that verifies it based off the locations of proposed facilities. Something else about solar projects that I wanted to touch on is glint and glare. So solar panels are designed to absorb light and not reflect them. Even though there might be a glossy exterior to some particular types of solar panels and technologies, it's still meant to absorb 98% in general, the amount of light that comes across the project itself. This is one reason why solar projects more and more are being built at major US airports, next to runways, within airport facilities. We and other solar developers, during permitting processes, will do a glint and glare study that we supply to the county, using FAA standards to verify sources of any glint and glare, as well as amounts for every portion of the day. One other aspect that's really important and is often discussed about solar projects, which is also very unique to solar. So unlike residential development, commercial development, and often other types power plants is the fact that solar projects must be decommissioned. So as a part of Jefferson County regulations, as part of the agreements with our landowners, after the project has reached its lifetime and is done generating electricity, the project is fully decommissioned. So the support structures, inverters, main power transformers, and everything below the surface down to a certain level all gets pulled out. And that is something that is guaranteed through financial security that is posted at start of construction for these projects and is in place for the life of the project through decommissioning to ensure that all facilities are removed and the land is returned to its previous use. And the last point I wanted to touch on, which is not typically discussed or really known about, is the fact that solar projects, and this isn't necessarily special to solar projects, same with wind and a lot of other generating projects, natural gas projects, nuclear plants these days, these are not built on speculation. So it's not as if we or another developer goes in, builds a project and hopes at the end of the day that there's somebody to buy the power. In order for a shovel to go into the ground for a utility scale project, there has to be a power customer at the end of the day. And something that is very unique in particular to solar projects is that power contract in our industry on average lasts for 15 to 25 years at a time. So what I mean by that is we enter into a contract with a utility or another commercial or industrial customer that is buying the power from the project. We have to enter into a long-term agreement that is essentially the backing of the financing of the project to get it built. Over that 15, 20, 25 year period, project guarantees a certain amount of generation at a fixed price for the life of that purchase agreement. And so what that means is essentially guaranteeing that the project is going to be around for a minimum of several decades. And what that means is that we are a reliable power source to the customers that are purchasing power over that period of time. We are making payments to participating landowners that are guaranteed over that particular amount of time. And then we are also contributing large amounts of property tax dollars guaranteed over that time. Just something very unique to other generation sources, just to give you a comparable. A natural gas plant, for example, tends to only have power contracts for about 5 years at a time. And that's one of the main reasons why solar projects have become so valuable, is because we can guarantee what the price of our power is going to be, which means that our customers that purchase the power know exactly how much they're going to pay for the energy that they're receiving from the project. Amanda, if you could go to the next slide, please. So that brings us to generally some information around who buys the energy from these types of projects. And in our world, in terms of the types of customers that we deal with on the utility scale side, are generally two different buckets of customers. The first one, pretty obvious, are utilities. The NIPSCOs of the world, the Dukes of the world, the AES Power of the world, utilities that serve your homes and businesses are a major buyer of renewable energy. And that goes back to some of the attributes that I just spoke about. So, the, advantage to utilities, again, is certainty of cost. There's no fuel source that we're paying for that fluctuates with markets. It's obviously clean, and so utilities don't have to worry down the line in terms of air emissions and how to solve for those problems. And most importantly, the cost is locked in. So they know exactly how much they're going to pay for the power for, again, 15, 20, 25 plus years, which is a major incentive for both the utility to control the costs of their generation sources, as well as guarantee for their customers fixed prices that are not dependent on market fluctuations. The second big bucket of customers that we deal with are what are called commercial and industrial customers. So these are typically large corporations, large users of powers. It could be major data centers such as Google, Microsoft, and Facebook, or large power users such as steel plants, manufacturing facilities, those kind of classes of customers. And their interest in that is very similar to utilities. While a lot of corporations have certainly made commitments in terms of buying carbon neutral, green, quote unquote, energy sources, which is a big incentive for those types of customers. Really what it comes down to is price of energy and being able to control a major component of their costs, which are how much is it going to take to run a facility or a data center. And that's where electricity really can have a major effect on the overall price to those entities. And so that's why more and more you see commercial industrial customers entering into long-term contracts with solar projects, such as one that we focus on in Jefferson County. And Amanda, if you could go to the next slide. We're obviously here to discuss questions around solar projects, but wanted to go over a few common ones that come up. And so to go down a few questions where I'm sure there are many more that we'll talk about later on. Some common ones that come up in communities that we work in. So, will a utility scale solar project provide power to nearby houses? So, where our power goes from the facilities that we develop and get built, in large part is dependent on who that end customer is. So, if it is a utility, and it's a local utility that's providing power to homes, they can enter into an agreement with a project such as the ones that we develop. And in that case, pretty straightforward. That will, at the end of the day, those electrons do go into the local area, and every electric customer is benefiting from those electrons that are being generated from that facility. But for the most part, we are selling power into what's called the wholesale market. And that can mean local utilities, again, that can mean commercial industrial customers that are within the same state, or other utilities that are within the state or other regions. So whether or not the power actually is going in to power your homes is largely dependent on who the end customer of the facility is. But one thing is for sure, electrons are like water in some sense, in that electrons in a certain area that are plugged into a grid nearby, they're not going directly to the end customer at the end of the day. They are spreading out along the grid, every single mile between the generation resource, the power plant, and the end customer. And so even though electrons from local solar facilities might not be technically going to your home, what they are doing is providing reliability to the local grid. And that is a benefit to everybody nearby, because it does help stabilize the local grid and provide resiliency to the local grid operators. Another common question that we get is, will your electric bill be affected at the end of the day? And this one is a little bit more complicated to answer. In general, if the utility is procuring power from a local solar project, that goes into their overall mix of what is likely dozens, if not hundreds, of different individual projects. And so a single project, even a really large project coming online, at the end of the day is going to have a pretty minimal impact to the overall cost to a power customer, to your own utility bill. It's very rare these days for an individual project to really greatly affect the overall bill of a single ratepayer. And the other thing just to kind of note is that everyone's utility bill is 50% the generation of resources, so the cost of a utility to generate electricity. The other 50% is completely unrelated. That's the system reliability, other liabilities that a power plant has to pay. Living out west, we have resiliency to wildfires and whatnot. And that other 50% of the bill is completely untied to the actual generation resources that go into the cost of the power that you all pay. And so there are a lot of factors that go into what affects a utility bill, up or down. But we'll say overall, again, going back to one of the main attributes of solar, we are a reliable and economical source of electricity, which is a big reason why utilities, again, are entering into contracts to purchase power from facilities that we develop. And then the second point to this is obviously very different if you're dealing with a corporate or a commercial industrial customer, that second class of customer that I mentioned in the previous slide. And the last thing I'll mention before handing it off is how long do panels last? And so being a utility scale project and a developer, we only deal with what are called tier 1 module manufacturers. So that is a relatively small group of manufacturers that are essentially the highest quality solar panels that you can get. Stuff that you put on your roofs, even on smaller projects, the community solar projects that I mentioned, tend to use other tiers of module manufacturers. We only focus on tier 1 module manufacturers. And so what that means, and is pretty industry standard, is that panels are meant to operate for 30 years, and they're warranted to do that. And so projects that we develop and construct, when those panels get installed on day one, they are warranted to last for up to 30 years. And so that is the useful lifespan that owners and operators and developers such as us rely on, is to expect every panel to operate for a 30-year period. And so with that, Amanda, I will hand it off to the next person.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Okay, Tommy, do you want to turn on your camera?
Yes. Everybody see and hear me okay?
Yes, we can.